Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. So again, we study the life of Buddha. So last time we studied the part that Prince Siddhartha left his palace with his servants, Jana, without announcement. So we know that depend upon everyone views. If we see that Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. So we studied the life of Buddha again. So last time we studied the part that Prince Siddhartha left the palace with his servants, Jana, without public announcement because he didn't want to be obstructed by his family members, especially his fathers, the King Suddhodana, his wife, the Princess Yasodhara, and his son Rahula. So he left uh, the palace secretly so that he could be free from their attachment. So before we discuss further about his journey to seek for the truth, again, last time we discussed about some uh, views that people may have in life. So of course, for us, the ultimate questions we used to have, or most people may have, is how could we come here and where we heading to? So some of us may be seriously inquire about that questions. Some of us may not. Some of us may have different views about life. Some of us may have different goals for our lives. Some of us may seek for material lives to be rich, to be billionaires. Some of us may like to have some kind of power mm, as president, prime ministers, governors, and so forth, so that people could recognize us. Some of us uh, just like to be a peaceful person. Some of us just like to be teachers and so forth. So some of us may seek for the wisdom and knowledge in life to learn maintenance many as possible. Or some of us may like to do good deeds to help other people. Some of us may like to share our properties or possessions to other people. Some of us may like to deal with all kind of challenges in life. So depend upon our views. So we have our end goal differently from others, and especially in religions, some of us look for the super beings who protect us or who will take us to their heaven ultimately. Uh, so depend upon how we view religions. Some of us like to have other people care for us, to seek for beauty in all forms, to have fun in life, to enjoy our life. So depend what we want to do for our lives. Some of us may find the meanings in these lifetimes through money, through food, entertainments, um, mm, uh, and so forth. But some of us may see there's no meaning in life if we chase after money, if we chase after sex, if we chase after the wealth or power or food. So again, depend upon how we view life. So for the Prince Siddhartha, um, he could not find any peace with his wealth, with his status as the prince or even as a future king. So he recognized the surface that everyone has to endure physically, uh, like uh, birth, aging, sickness, and death. So that uh, intrigued his mind to leave everything behind so that he could find some types of ultimate truth to solve the problems of the life that no one can escape from. So that's the idea. That's why he left his palace by himself without letting other people know, except Jana, his servants. So before move on, let me explain to you this kind of the common mm, understanding, the common approach of the people in the past, especially in India. So in Hinduism, there's traditions that if someone uh, grew up in that traditions, when they was young, they stay with their families. When they mature enough to get married, to form families, as well as to accumulate the wealth, and in their middle age or old age, they may put down everything to become uh, hermit, to seek for a spiritual path. So let me show you some of the idea that is start from uh, Hinduism, um, that talk about that type of stages in life.
Called ashramas. The first stage is the stage of brahmacharya. It is the period of formal education for the celibate student who leaves his house to live with the guru. The brahmacharya acquires knowledge of scriptures, science, philosophy, self-discipline, and logic. He pays the guru dakshina before leaving to live the life of dharma. Grihastha is the second stage, which begins with marriage. The Grihastha is the householder who raises a family and leads the household. The Grihastha produces food and wealth to support his family. This stage is considered the most important of all the stages. The third stage is the stage of Vanaprastha. It is the stage of retirement. It is the phase of transition where the Vanaprastha hands over all the responsibilities to the next generation and retires to spend his life in the forest. Sannyas is the last stage marked by renunciation. The sannyasi devotes himself to God and renounces all material pleasures, desires, and expectations. he moves towards spiritual development and the attainment of moksha.
So again, these are the stages of life according to Hinduism. So that's why uh, Prince Siddhartha, after seeing the three signs, the old man, the sick man, and the dead man, of course, he was so frustrated to see those signs. But the last one, he saw a sign of a Hindu monks, the one that took down everything, um, their possessions, properties, or their relationship with other family members, friends, and so forth, to become a mendicant or hermit, so that they can seek for the spiritual life. So that's why Prince Siddhartha saw that type of Hindu monks, mendicants. So that somehow intrigued his mind, that probably this is a way to find the ultimate truth, to get out the cycle of rebirth, to solve the problems of aging, sickness, and death that no one can escape from. And so that's why he chose this lifestyle, the hermit lifestyle, so that he could um, have more times to find the ultimate truth for himself as well as other people. And again, like I mentioned last time, he felt safe for his wife and child, because he knew that even without him, they would have the basic needs of food, drink, clothes, and shelters that were provided by his fathers. So that's why he could leave them for a while, so that he could seek for the ultimate truth. It doesn't mean that he ran away from them and didn't fulfill his responsibilities as a husband or as the fathers. So, like when someone going to college for a few years to study, um, for 4 years up to 10 years or more than that, so that they could be uh, engineer, doctor, and so forth. So in those time, the time that they study at school, they would not have the chance to have the family much if they really focus on their studies. That doesn't mean that they don't fulfill their responsibilities, but because of the time for them to study, so that they could focus on that type of learning. After that, they would have the abilities to help themselves as well as their family members and the society. So again, Siddhartha left everything behind, so that he could have more times to search for ultimate truth. So we know that he left the palace when he was around 29 years old, with his servant Jana, and the horse. And somehow, uh, when he got to the bank of the river, he cut his hair and threw the hair to the air and made the vows that if he would attain enlightenment, the hair would fly on the air. And so it did. So that's why it encouraged him to move further, and he gave everything back to Jana, so that Jana could bring all his hair, um, jewels, and so forth back to his palace to report to his fathers, as well as letting his wife know that he moved further instead of being attached with the family's responsibilities or with the secular life. So of course, there's many types of testing, um, physically and mentally. According to the tradition, they say that Mara um, tried to prevent him to live, but somehow, with his strong will, he gave up everything and overcame those obstructions and move on to his path. And last time we learned that the horse that brought him to the bank of river Chandaka, he loved his master too much that somehow it broke his heart and he passed away because of his merit of being faithful to his master. So he was born in one of the heaven to become a heavenly beings. And at that time, the gods came down and offered the Buddhas and the eight items for him to use. And of course, later on, the Buddha laid down the rules for monks and nuns to have those precious items like the outer robes, the inner robes, and a thick ropes for the window, and bowl for gathering the food, a razor for shaving, and needles and thread, a bell, a water filter for removing the impurity from drinking water. And so that's why he could move on to become a hermit officially and formally. So of course, his wife, Princess Yasodhara, she was sad because her husband left the palace without notice, and of course, she recognized his will and determinations to find the truth for them. So somehow, according to the legend, they say that when later on Princess Yasodhara heard the news that Prince Siddhartha practiced self-torture as assisted practice, she did in the court in the palace too. So whichever she got the news, informations from the prince, whichever she knew how he practiced, she would do so in the palace as well as Prince Siddhartha. So somehow at that time, after he gave up everything, Prince Siddhartha went to Raja, the the city and the neighbor kingdoms, uh, and of course, this is one of the largest or strongest kingdom in the era during those time. And the king of this kingdom, Magda, was Bimbisara, and later on he became one of the Buddha great supporters. And so when King Bimbisara heard the news that Prince Siddhartha left his palace to become a mendicant, a hermit, so this king uh, went out to search for the prince. And let me show you the area where the country or kingdom Magadha right here, and Kosala is nearby the city of Kapilavastu, right here. Kapilavastu, that is the city of Prince Siddhartha and the King Suddhodana. So from here, he left his palace and went by foot to the kingdom Magadha, where the king Bimbisara control. So the king Bimbisara went out to seek for Prince Siddhartha out of respect. So he made an offer to Prince Siddhartha. If you stay back at my kingdom, I will share half of my kingdom to you. And definitely, we know that because Prince Siddhartha, he wanted to search for the truth. He left everything behind, even his kingdoms, his father's wives and child. So how could he accept this offer? So that's why he rejected. And King Bimbisara asked him, in the future, if you attain enlightenment, please come back here to teach me first. Of course, Prince Siddhartha accepted that request, and later on he kept that promise. After his enlightenment, he went back to this um, country or kingdoms to teach King Bimbisara. So let me show you the kingdom of this era. And Magadha is one of the largest and strongest kingdom during those times. Let me show you here. So again, here Magadha is one of the strongest kingdom during those times, and it's run by the king Bhimsara, and later on he was the Buddha great supporter. So he laid out the foundation for Magadha Empire in the 5th century, and under him he controlled 80,000 villages in his kingdom. So here the image that describes how the Buddha gave the advice to this king Bimbisara, and Rajiham was early capitals of this Magadha kingdom. That's where the Buddha went to. Here's the motive. And Ajatasattu killed his fathers. We know that the story that he imprisoned his father until his father died in the prison, and he took the throne. Okay, anyway, so these are the information about uh, the Magadha Empire in the ancient times of India. So that is where the place the Buddha went first, and he promised to King Bhimsara after his enlightenment, he would come back and teach him. And so he went on uh, to search for the truth. And of course, now as a medical, he uh, somehow follow the Hindu tradition that carrying the ball around and people offer food to him. Again, for us in modern times, we see people who live under the bridge or the homeless people. Somehow, most of the time, the mentality is that we would not have much respect about them. For those ask for food, but we have to understand that in India, in the past, like just mentioned recently, that most Americans or hermits came from the high class, the wealthy people. That's why when they uh, let go of everything, especially their wealth and relationship with their family members, they were uh, well respected by the communities. And of course, the means for them to survive is to beg for food with the respect. People offer them the food to support their life. And that's why Prince Siddhartha, when he went out to the palace, he saw that have Hindu mendicants, and he uh, somehow at first uh, followed that Indian traditions to beg for food to survive. And of course, that's not mm, the reason why he left his palace, but the main reason is to seek for the truth. And of course, later on, when he went back to his kingdom to see his fathers, so uh, his father inquired and admonished him um, that why did you go out to beg for food, even from the poor people? You are the prince. You're supposed to stay in the palace to enjoy all kind of lavish lives, delicious food. But now you are Americans to better food should go against our traditions of our royal families members. So the Buddha say, well, anyway, I just follow my own traditions. So he further explained that his tradition is the Buddha traditions that go out to beg for food in return. He would teach people. That's the way he could gain affinity uh, with other people. And of course, many people would follow his teaching by that way. So again, because of traditions, he follow that type of way of life. It's not like he didn't have food uh, to consume. He was so desperate to ask for food, like the way that we see homeless people nowadays. So anyway, so he went here and there, and somehow he encountered some situation that he could give advice to the king Bin Sara later on. So one day when he went out he saw people bringing the sheep to the court, to the palace, to sacrifice them. And of course, he tried to stop them and explain that all animals want to live, not want to die. And as human, we need to be compassionate toward those animals instead of harming them. So if we want to drink, if we want to have good karma, we need to drink good seed with our good thought. If we harm animals, so how could we gain the good retributions? And of course, at first it's pure hard for him to convince those people who want to sacrifice the animals for their own gods. But of course, when he went um, back to the palace and saw King Bimbisara, and of course, King Bimbisara was convinced by him not to do animal sacrifice at all. So again, this type of animal sacrifice is still going on in India and other nearby countries like Nepal. And actually, for me, when I went to India in the year of 1998, 1999, I saw that people brought their sheep to a Hindu temple to kill those animals as a way to sacrifice uh, animals for their own god to fulfill their wish. So let me show you some video clips that people nowadays still practicing this type of religious practice, but harming all type of animals in Nepal. So they practice animal sacrifice every 5 years according to Hindu traditions. And you see that this young man, he tried to chop off the head of the cows, the buffaloes. And one of the reasons why they want to sacrifice animals because they make a wish or they want to fulfill their wish. For example, about that man, he want to pray for God that would bless his child to be successful in studying. See that man. Um, and there's some animal uh, protection people try to protect animal, but still that type of tradition is uh, happening prevalence in Nepal and India. So this is the part. So that's what Prince Siddhartha witnessed the animal sacrifice happening during his time. Of course, again, it's continue to happen nowadays. So that's why he gave the advice to Prince, sorry, King Suddhodana that he's not supposed to harm animals or to sacrifice animals for the god. So the background story is that the king, the Bimbisara, one night he has a dreams that he heard the crying sound around his palace, and in the morning when he wake up, he told his minister about this type of nightmare. Uh, so his ministers suggest him that he need to have animal sacrifice to the god so that he could get it up his nightmare. So that's why he followed that advice to kill animals to sacrifice uh, to his god. But of course, Prince Siddhartha at that time he had not attained enlightenment yet, but he intervened to stop the king to kill those innocent animals and remind the king about the karmas that if you want to have a peaceful life, you're not supposed to harm animals and other people because everyone want to live. Uh, every animals want to live, not want to die. So that's why later on the King Bimbisara took the Prince uh, Siddhartha advice not to kill or sacrifice animal anymore. So later on, he went out. Uh, he went further and left that city to seek for the teachers. The first teacher he encountered was Aradam Kamlama. He stayed with the teachers who guide him to do meditation, and later on he attend to the state of uh, uh, meditative state of mind that he could attend um, the um, the state of mind that neither consciousness nor unconsciousness with his first teacher as well as his second teacher, Uddrakar Brahmaputra. And of course, both of them try to keep him back so that they could help him to be the next leader in their communities. But they failed to help him to solve the questions of uh, birth, old age, sickness, and death. So that's why he moved on and left them to seek for the truth by himself. So according to the Hindu traditions, during those times, many of them again left the secular lives to seek for the spiritual life. But many of them practice what we call self-torturing or ascetic practice. Some of them may cut down the amount of food they took until they could not eat anything at all. Some of them may stay quietly on one foot, and some of them may raise their hands up to the sky uh, until there's no more blood to circulate in their body. And some of them may hold the hand together and never let go until the fingernails would pierce through their palms. Some of them lie down on the bed of nails uh, and so forth. So those are the I see practices that prevalence in India. But of course nowadays is still practice those type of I said it practice, a self-torture practice. Let me show you some video clips that they still have this kind of practice in India when they have the big celebration. Some of them they pierce through their mouth, like this young man. See that? And some of them put the hook of the fruit on their back and even pour the string with the hook, put the hook with the bells on the back, and so forth. So those are the practices that are still going on, continue in India nowadays. So again, somehow after living the two teachers, he followed those old traditions to practice, I say practice self-torture as other people. So he used many ways to practice this type of traditions. And he went to Uru Viva and found another place to practice. That's nearby is the village, so that the villager could offer the food to him. And later on, five more people joined him. They were Kaudinyanam, Badichka, Basam, Mahamana, Avachi. So they were the five scholars that predict soon later he would attain enlightenment. That's why he uh, accept them as a companions to practice this kind of self-torture with them. He practice together with them this type of ascetic practice. So uh, until the times that he could not eat at all, he couldn't eat anything at all, and of course, eventually he becomes to think, and yes, he still have the form determinations to do the practice, and sometimes he be exhausted and became unconscious. And so let me show you. This was the image that show how he practiced self-torture or ascetic practice or fasting for many days without consuming any food. So these are the image or the statue that demonstrates how he tortured himself, how he fast without eating much. So again, according to the legend, they say that this was um, a, um, a shepherd boys who saw that Prince Siddhartha almost collapsed. So he brought the sheep milk and offer to the prince Siddhartha. And of course, after consuming the milk, he regained his strength. And somehow in the village, there's a group of women who pass by his meditation place, and they sing the song. And at that time, he recognized that if he go to the extreme, um, the extreme that enjoy the life, indulging in luxury life, and that's one extreme. Another extreme is to torture the body. So with this kind of extreme, there's no way for him to find the ultimate truth easily. He needs to follow the middle way. That's like the lute need to have the string. The string would not need to be too loose or need not to be too tight, so that it would make the sound. So does the mind. That's why he recognized that he need to follow the middle way. So now it's time up. Let me stop here today, and next time we discuss further. Nam mô Sakamuni Buddha.